Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thanks so much for being here. So, a bunch of items to unpack before we dive in, but let's kind of just jump in and get started. The title for today's live session is all about this hiring push. And so, we're going to spend just maybe a minute or so talking about the importance of what it looks like to do a hiring push for any company at the end of the year, regardless of whether there's been hiring freezes, there's been economic challenges. Using this headcount before the end of the year can be really, really critical. I do want to spend a moment talking about yesterday's video as well, which I think will be really impactful and helpful. I'm going to have a scheduling change moving forward, so let's just dive in. And as always, if you've been here before, you know I'll get to all the questions today. That's the most important thing for me that I'm able to give back to the community. So I'm going to have a live scheduling change, and I'll kind of highlight this a few times during the session today. I need to push the live sessions to Tuesdays. I have a personal conflict now coming up on Wednesdays, so lives will be pushed to Tuesdays starting next week. The start time, I'm going to get some feedback from the Slack community and anybody in the community today. I'm happy to keep that 10 a.m. start time. I could go all the way to 11, but I think to hit a more global audience, it probably makes sense to start earlier, maybe 9 a.m. So just want to, again, get feedback from the community on what's going to be the best time to go live on Tuesdays. Since I'm going to go live on Tuesdays, my every other week YouTube original content, that's going to move to Mondays. So just a complete shift in my schedule, just shifting back one day, and hopefully that doesn't have an impact on the community, but I need to keep announcing it because I've gone live at Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific almost every time for a couple of years now. So it'll be a little bit of a shift. So if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe, the business is practiceinterviews.com. We do interview coaching, negotiation coaching, and special offer today on our mastery course, $100 off if you use the coupon code MOON. MOON, and that's just for today until 11:59 Pacific time. So let's go right back to the title of today, hiring push. What happens at a lot of these companies is it's a use it or lose it model. What does that mean? If you have headcount now and you don't use it by the end of the year, in some cases, many cases, that hiring manager might lose that headcount. So they're super motivated to fill these roles, especially knowing that there's going to be less hiring that's going to go on for the rest of this year. So it's really good to know, what does that mean for you? It means that you might be able to put a little bit more pressure, a little bit of a push on your recruiter to just get things done, because we know that these hires need to be made. Yesterday's video, candidly, the original content videos, the views are way down. But I mean, I just realistically, my content is getting better and better, and that's because of you. I get better because every time I coach somebody, every time I get questions from the community, the content is going to get more and more niche to figure out what are the areas that are really going to help you. Watch that video from yesterday. Fuel, using past examples to help fuel our solutions and our open-ended questions. It's critical. That video yesterday is really one of the best tips and tricks you can have for really crushing hypothetical and open-ended questions. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. I always tell people you can watch me on 2x. There's no reason to watch me on 1x. I'm low and slow. So you can speed me up. You can get through my content in half the time. And I recommend watching any and all of my content on 2x. If you like it at that speed, I do all my listening at that speed. I think that's it. We'll see what comes up. Remember, we're a positive platform, so love coming in with the positivity. It doesn't just have to be questions, comments, any feedback that's going to help the overall community is great. So let's do it. Let's dive in. I'm going to start off with Bernie. Bernie, Jeff, thank you so much for all the great content. They help me tremendously in interviews and salary negotiation. You're joining Google Taiwan as an L6 SWE TPM in about a week. Amazing. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of these TPM roles, and to land an L6 TPM role, you really got to crush the interviews. Those are really big roles, tons and tons of opportunity, and we've seen some of the best. Well, I've seen basically the best comp for those roles coming overall in 2022, and especially now. And this is something, just like a quick note for the community that I don't want to forget. Of the last 5 to 10 offers that I've worked on negotiation clients with, they have been some of the best I have ever seen for level and role. Why? Many of these roles are prioritized now. So with a prioritized role, a critical role, there's more flexibility for comp. People are worried about competing offers and not negotiating in today's landscape. Get after it even more than you ever have, because the roles that are getting hired for are critical. They need you. So please remember that. And I'll probably pitch to that a couple times. Yeah, absolutely. Congrats again. Thanks so much for showing up and letting us know. Great positive way to start off the live. First of all, thank you. Thank you. After months of watching your content, it looks like you're finally headed towards HC for a SWE Manager 2 for Google. Okay. Data point first, from what I heard, it seems the freeze is still on, meaning teams won't grow, so they're only fulfilling requisitions that were approved before the freeze. That's not true. This is just on a needs basis, so some jobs will come up after the freeze. And given today's topic, any advantage in joining a few days before the new year? Yeah, so yes, because it's a refresher thing. So basically, you are guaranteed refreshers if you start this year. If you start in January, you're technically not guaranteed them. Is a hiring manager going to take your 11 and a half months of work versus 12 months of Jane's work and say, hey, David, you don't deserve any refreshers? No, but just to guarantee refreshers, start this year. Plus, they got a bunch of holidays. Christmas, Christmas Eve is off, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So you get like 4 holiday days. So I strongly encourage starting this year. And Eng Manager, there is a ton of room for negotiation. Eng managers can leave $100,000 to $150,000 a year on the table if you take that initial offer and you don't negotiate. So make sure you negotiate. It can be at least those amounts, maybe more. And good luck. Okay, so you just accepted a short-term contract at Google, 1 to 2 months with a possible extension starting on 11/21. Is this something you should share with your internal recruiter? Yes, you definitely should. Does accepting a UX writer contract have a negative impact on my ongoing attempt to get a full-time job? You've passed the portfolio review, but I'm stuck in waiting for team match phase. I can't say for sure. It could or it could not, but I still think taking the contract was the right thing to do. HM for the contract can't promise or say anything about extensions or future FTE opportunities, but it's a newer team. Is it beneficial to be transparent with him about my current situation? Sure. Transparency is great. Like, we're not trying to hide things, so I think transparency would be good. I've heard that many of these short contracts are due to the fact that the teams are awaiting 2023 budget. Can you explain how the budget typically works for extensions versus FTE headcount? Okay. So, well, yeah, if they don't have, sometimes they can get budget for a contractor if they don't have a FTE rec approved. Is this just magically going to happen in 2023 in January? No. It takes a while to get all that headcount cleared out. It's especially slow at Google. It's really slow. You have to go in and crush it. And a lot of people don't like my recommendation, and this actually technically falls outside of what Google would consider like the legal realm, but you just have to outwork everybody. And quite honestly, that's what I did as a contractor. I just simply outworked every person, because by working more every single day, working on the weekends, I was just able to get more done and produce better results. So if you really want to maximize this opportunity, get in there, crush it, work hard. Again, they may not approve that overtime. I'm telling you to still work it, okay? Now, they don't like that answer, but the reality is that we have to do anything and everything we can when we have this opportunity in front of us. So it could get extended. There could be an FTE opportunity. It's not that straightforward. If there's a need, they'll get budget to extend your contract. And then the FTE thing, sometimes it can take time to shape that out. So it's not like January hits and all of a sudden they get it. It might not be till March or April or May even, okay? As usual, your content is awesome, and thank you for dedicating this time to your followers. I don't say that enough. No, and I appreciate it. And remember, I love being here for the community. This stuff is hard. The transparency in terms of hiring processes and interview strategies and systems and like everything to expect, there's just poor transparency, and it's just not backed by really good processes. And so it makes it really hard. So I'm here to help uncover some of the stuff that just isn't going to be told to you. So I love showing up for the community. Thank you. Hi, Jeff. Interviewed for G, L7, L8 position in August. Recruiter stated T match after positive feedback. You had one T match call, but so far no feedback. Now the recruiter sent my packet to HC. Is this normal? Well, I would hope for better communication from your recruiter. Are they sending you to HC just to send you to HC and have an approved packet? Are they sending you to HC because you're actually matched with this team? Do you have any of that information? Full clarity is really helpful. L7 and L8 those are vastly different roles. L8 is a director. L7 is a higher level manager, right? There's a huge pay discrepancy, huge responsibility discrepancy. So I want to know, what level? Is it a generic hiring committee? Is it actually that I'm team matched for this team? It sounds like there's some missing data that they need to provide for you. Hi, Jeff. Thanks as always for these chats. What's the deal with interview feedback? My recruiter said it's policy not to give feedback, but I've seen others who know if they got strong or weak higher recs. Okay, so really technically what your recruiter says is true. They should not be giving you direct feedback, telling you the scores, strong hire, lean hire, no hire. If they tell you those scores, that's not really confidential because they're not telling you which interview showed up as what, and definitely that's not happening. I don't really like that approach. So I wouldn't tell you either. And the reason why is you might get false hope. If I say you got 3 hires and a lean hire, maybe you're feeling really great, but maybe the data to back that isn't strong, and I take you to HC and you're not going to make it through. So it's a recruiter to recruiter basis. This is where, again, systems and process would be in place. Google should be blanketed and say, and I don't think you didn't say whether it was Google or not, but just the company in general should have a blanket policy and not deviate from that policy. And this just goes back to really, really poor training from all these companies. These recruiters should have a absolute specific system, and that specific system should allow everybody to follow the same methodologies, the same process. So I'm sorry that happened to you, but really I wouldn't provide you with that data either. Hopefully you're just getting overall positive signs that they want to move forward. Let me know if you have any other questions. Clarity on Google equity compensation. With the stock split, the number of shares is 10x what it used to be. To make the math easy, assume the equity award is $1 million at $100 a share volume weighted average price. Okay. So let's just go to the second part. 33, 22, 12. First year award is this amount of shares, and those vested monthly from number month 1, or cliff followed by monthly. Okay, so Andrew, I'm struggling a little bit with the messaging, but the stock split is irrelevant, right? So they're going to give you a cash amount. Let's say that cash amount is $1 million, which would be great. You'll get 33% of that in year 1. Now, if you got $1 million in equity, that would cash out monthly. So they're just going to take that percent. So whatever that money is, and they're going to take the monthly average of the stock price, and that's how many stocks they're going to give you. So again, we could work with more simple numbers, whether it's 10 shares or 100 shares or 3,000 shares, right? All they're going to do is they're going to take the snapshot of that monthly stock price average for the last month, and then they'll give that to a number of shares. Now, remember, people are expecting to get all those shares, but you're only going to get about 65% of those shares because a certain percent of shares will be held back for taxes. I hope that helps. Please let me know if that wasn't clear, but Once you hit a certain level of equity, they pay out in different percentages. Really low equity grant, it's going to pay out yearly. A little bit higher, quarterly, and a little bit higher, it'll pay out on a monthly basis. Again, if that didn't answer your question, please come back and let us know. How does hiring freeze / push for FTE positions affect TVC availability? Is it a trade-off, more headcount, less need for TVC, less headcount, more need for TVC? It depends. Yeah, it depends. I think that some hiring managers have probably been able to get budget for TVCs because they couldn't get them for FTEs. But, if we were to look at like recruiting, for example, they're not hiring any new TVCs and all the TVCs will be let go when their contracts end. So it really varies department to department. So some departments you'll see a little bit of a push, some you won't. But I think overall, in general, I would think that a few more TVCs would come in here and there just to make up for the fact that some hiring managers couldn't get full-time headcount but still had a very specific need. I'm on my team matching step, SWE L4 in Europe. My application was closed because they don't have a team for me now. Already waiting for a month. How long can it take for this step? So if your application was closed, you are no longer in the team matching stage. If your application is closed, it's that they didn't think that they could find you a team. They've closed out your application and you'll have opportunities in the future. If your recruiter didn't communicate that to you appropriately, I'm sorry to tell you that. Your interview feedback remains good for a year. What I recommend to everybody is you should have a good cadence with your recruiter for following up. Can I check in with you once a month, once every 2 months, once every quarter? Create that relationship so they know how often you'll check in, and that will establish a really good relationship. But if your application has been closed, you are no longer in the team match stage, and they should have made that very clear. Pranar, how are you? For Google AE, past 3 rounds, phone interview, hiring manager, and peer. Now I'm waiting final round with my HM's boss, industry lead. What kind of questions can I expect? Anything. This is really, they can ask you anything they want. So I would definitely be prepared for problem solving, open-ended and hypothetical questions, and then behavioral questions. You might get a little bit more questions about your overall approach, your overall strategy. Remember, when we're talking to our skip leads, we're trying to think about how we can make their lives easier. We typically do that by taking on robust projects, really working with the team, really strongly collaborating. So at the end, make sure with the skip lead, you default to those great questions. What do you love about your position? What do you love about the organization? What's the coolest thing you're working on? As somebody who's coming in a couple of levels below you, what are some of the ways that I can best help you have success in your job? So it's them focused. They'll like you more as opposed to asking questions that focus in on you. Great job of the content. I'm being recommended by a recruiter to retake the RRK2 interview to be hired as a TAM L4, except being hired as an L3. What do you recommend? You should just always double check with your recruiter, but typically what happens is that you are not putting anything at risk by redoing that interview. So I always recommend it. Now just double check again with them to say, hey, am I putting anything at risk by doing this? And as long as they say no, go ahead and proceed and do it. If you did not do well in that RRK2 for the TAM role, the case study, got to bring in more solutions, specific GCP solutions, and always be thinking collaboration, and not only how you're going to do it with the client, but how you will collaborate with internal stakeholders to make it successful. Okay, and that last part, yeah, Andrew, come back to me if if how I define that was not clear. Hey Jeff, before moving to HC, I've been asked to redo the PgM RRK interview. Any tips? Super nervous, appreciate your help. Yeah, I would go right back to the recruiter and say, hey, can you highlight anything that I should really focus in on? Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't, but I would really push back on them. The RRK interview is really typically looking for your domain expertise and your programmatic skills. So reflect back to the last RRK interview, think about what you did well, what are some areas that you could potentially work on. Really go through some of those program manager videos that I put out there, really work on your program manager framework. That's kind of all the advice I have, so I hope that helps. Hi, Jeff. I've heard the freeze is as bad for ML AI SWEs as it is for SWEs not in that area. Does this sound correct to you? Thanks for the great content. You'd have to imagine that that was a true statement, because AI and ML SWEs are one of the most critical hires that any organization can make in our current times. So I haven't actually seen that personally, but you just have to believe it, just knowing the criticality of these types of roles. Thanks for your cadence. Your content is really good, and I may be able to push my boundaries even better. Thanks for the positive feedback. When do you think customer engineers will open back up? I think in Q1. I think Q1 you'll start to see, with Google Cloud's strong performance in the earnings, I think you'll see CE roles opening up back up in Q1, Q2 of next year. How should we answer skills required? Skills required, and what's your 90-day plan for Google? I'm not sure I understand the skills required question, so I'm going to have you come back on that one. What's your 90-day plan? Would still clarify, right? Our 90-day plan, do you really want to focus in on the 90-day plan as it pertains to building internal relationships, building external relationships, or both? Should I focus in on the 90-day plan on how I'm going to up my skill set, get trained, et cetera, et cetera? So I'd still clarify. I'd still come in with the framework and say, in order to have success in my first 90 days, here are 5 items that I want to focus in on, and then pick one of those items and drill deep into your 90-day plan. You can also present the options and kind of go through it and say, okay, here's what I do in the first 30, 60, 90. This is a question that kind of breaks the mold a little bit. I'm okay with going 30, 60, 90, but I think you can still clarify and present the overall framework of what you want to accomplish in those 90 days, and then either chop through one item or go 30, 60, 90. But the first part of your question, I don't understand. So come back to us. No, I think if you don't know a lot about Google Ads, up your knowledge. The more you know about Google Ads, the better. And by the way, just in case you don't have that experience, your competition definitely does. So make sure that you up your Google Ads knowledge as much as you can. And there's a lot of different places to do that online. I missed one of your questions. Seems the freeze is on, meaning teams won't grow. So again, I answered that. So again, I don't think that's a true statement, and I do think that there's an advantage to joining this year because of refresher stock. Okay. I'm curious of the typical top skills and interview process for people analysts. Is this the role you see people from talent acquisition switch to, your source or previously contract? Yeah, not uncommon for sourcers and recruiters to switch over to people analyst roles, sometimes like operational roles, oftentimes even like program manager roles within people ops. So yeah, this is very, very typical. Now you'd want to take those great analytical skills that you have as a sourcer to like deep dive, use these Boolean searches, and really get into more about how you dive into the data and analytics. So I hope that helps. If you have more questions, let me know. But this is a very common transition, but really think about metrics, numbers, analytics, and how you've done that and how you did that as a sourcer, and then how you would do it in a people analyst role. Hi, Jeff. In general, are hiring processes and interview styles different between US and Europe, say Dublin? Nope, they're the same. How do you think a lot of new positions will be open at the start of next year, or hiring will be slow? Hiring is going to be slow. I think that if we're looking at next year, we're looking at probably, it's going to be slow for at least the first 2 quarters, maybe all year. I think we just need to anticipate all year, and hopefully it's only 1 or 2 quarters starting next year, but I think all of next year will be slow. If I'm guessing, if I really knew, maybe I should be doing another job, but that's my best guess. I'm in the team match phase for roles that would likely require me to relocate. I asked my recruiter about RSU early investing in the event of a layoff to provide some insurance. Have you heard of this being a part of their offer? No. This is not a part of their offer. I do not believe that they will do that for you. It's unlikely. Layoffs are unlikely. It doesn't mean they won't happen, but they will not provide a different process for you. It's just a little bit too rigid. They're a little bit too big. If you're team match, I'm assuming that we're talking about Google. Hi, Jeff. You were told you could be a Google TAM at L3, but there's no spaces available due to the hiring freeze. You should. I mean, you might have to wait till next year. You've just got to build that cadence with your recruiter. Should I touch base with you every week, every 2 weeks, every month? Just continue to build that relationship with them and check in. Referring to a Google AE role, what could be our anchor in terms of expected total comp 100% higher than, okay, CTC, I'm not current total comp. You would anchor 100% higher. This is missing some data. So I need to know the level. I need to know the level and the location. Otherwise, I'm really never helpful on compensation. Those are the 2 critical data points. Remember, the comp team is only looking at 3 things. They're looking at the specific role. They're looking at the level and the location. That's how they determine comp. They're going to pay for cost of labor in that market, and they usually start at the 75th percentile for cost of labor in the market. So they're already starting at a high percentage, and then obviously with a good negotiation, they'll go probably up over 100% in a given market for cost of labor. Hello, Jeff. You're the best. So are you. Quick poke. Quick poke. That's not the right word. Raul is our data guru on the Slack group. If you go to practiceinterviews.com, we have a free Slack group. We answer questions. People practice with each other. There's tons of data. So get in there and just practiceinterviews.com. Join our Slack group. It's completely free. You're the best. Thanks. Can you help in ratifying this, please? Does a headcount for Q1 2023 become available a quarter earlier? That is Q4 2022. So it's really important to understand that the way that Google does headcount planning is poor. And I think that anybody internally there would 100% agree with me. They have a really, really poor strategy for headcount planning. It just takes forever. So sometimes Q1 can be really slow for hiring because everybody's battling to get all these positions. So I think you're going to see it be very, very slow in Q1 too. But I do think for you, for GCP, that there will be some openings in Q1. I hope that helps. Okay, so this is coming in as a 2 of 2. So 1 of 2 I do not believe came through. I'm told total comp can be lower than my current base and asked if I'm okay before getting approval. Does this mean I'm getting an offer? If yes, any tips and ranges for negotiation? Okay, so sometimes your current base will dip. Total comp is unlikely to dip. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but for people entering a company like Google, for example, 90x% of people coming in are going to make more. I don't know if you're getting an offer. I can't tell you for sure. Now, tips, I have a ton of negotiation videos that I recommend you watch. Ranges for negotiation. We don't know the role, we don't know the location, and we don't know the level. So those are items that help. Years of experience is completely irrelevant. Those 3 data points are the only data points that matter. All right, we're hitting the 30s. At the 30s, I'm going to do a few quick prompts. We have a great special offer today, $100 off the interview mastery course if you use the coupon code MOON, MOON. That'll be available till 11:59 Pacific time today in the US. I do practice interviews. I do negotiation coaching. Look, on the negotiation coaching, the offers right now are crazy. And I know that multiple clients have gotten 6 figures or more per year by using that coaching. It's hard to convince people of the value of it, but I know it's super valuable. We have tons of free resources, right? So I'm going to start going live every Tuesday starting next week. Original content every Monday. We have 9 free resources on the website that are all fantastic. We have a free Slack group. I do a blog post every week. There's probably 50 or 60 blog posts up there. So if you prefer reading as opposed to watching videos, there's that content for you as well. Hi, Jeff. Can you answer this question? How do you manage a project that 75% of the project is spent, but only 25% of the work is done? This looks like a very common question that I ask some of my clients. Yeah, and so I can. And the first and most critical clarifying question that you would want to ask for this question is, was that the plan? Because sometimes, a lot of times in projects, we have to do a lot of spending up front, especially if it's like a hardware project. Maybe we had to buy all the hardware. So you can simply ask that question, because if you don't ask that question, you're not thinking holistically. And then I'd want to understand items more focused in on scope, impact, timeline, stakeholders, internal, external. Those are some of the questions I would want to ask. I'd definitely get into the historical data question. Have we done an initiative like this before? Yes or no? Because that could help understand if we've seen similar spends in regards to how much of the work has been done. Now, I definitely want to be focused heavily on things like our overall budget, timeline, and the risk. What are the risks associated with this? And then I'd want to try and think about any scalability automation that we could bring in. That would be our framework. Then the assumptions, again, would be very role specific. And then we solve, focusing in on one framework concept. I love this question. I just kind of say straight up, it's a BS question. Like, that could be absolutely part of our plan, that we're managing this project and 75% of it's complete. 75% of it's spent, but only 25% of it's complete. That's an unknown data point. Awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much for your answers. You're the best. Thank you. You suggested joining in 2022 for stock refresher purposes. My current employer will pay me 2022's bonus if I stay till 12/31. I can meet that date using PTO. Is it legal in the US to join a company while formally employed at another, even in practice if I no longer work there? I think so. But the disclaimer is that I'm not a lawyer. And so I would legally check on that. I think it's possible. I don't want you to walk away from that bonus, especially if it's significant. I would also want you to just make it maybe easier and just build it in as a sign-on and say, hey, if I join this year, I'm walking away from 50,000. Can you build that in as a sign-on to my offer? And then it's null and void. So something to be thinking about. I hope that helps. Thank you. That help question was on payout during year one. I still pay out on year one, during year one. Again, it depends on the size of the vest, but yeah, your equity, okay. So maybe, yeah, let me take a step back. If I didn't answer the question, equity is paid out throughout the year. It depends on the size of your vest. So once it hits a certain threshold, those thresholds are always like a little bit of moving pieces, but usually it's in that like 250 to 300K in equity plus, it's going to pay out monthly, but it starts right away. And then if it's a little bit smaller vest, it's quarterly. and then it can go all the way up to paying out once per year. But those are for L3, potentially new grads. Those are going to be very, very small equity grants under 100K USD over 4 years. But anything bigger is going to pay out throughout the year. You just need to find out from your recruiter what that cadence is. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, Red on Blind, Google is putting new SWEs into a PIP. This would be a performance improvement plan to eventually lay them off, quiet layoff like Meta. Do you know something about that? I do not. I've not heard anything about that. Thank you for sharing. I love this community because we're trying to share information. If you've never been on Team Blind, it's probably the best resource for just like tech information, tech data. So I strongly recommend teamblind.com. There's just tons of good data. I haven't heard that. Would I be shocked that that happened? I just think with all the bad press that Meta's gone through and how much they've suffered as an organization, I would think that Google would try and avoid doing that, but I obviously can't say for sure. Thanks for sharing. Hello, Jeff. I have a Google TAM interview coming up next week, and there will be some questions asked for GCP. Any tips on what specific services I need to focus in to nail it? All of them. So, what I tell all my clients who are interviewing for any GCP role, including TAMs, is the recruiter's going to say, oh, you're good. You don't need to know anything about GCP. That's totally untrue. Your competition does. Sometimes they've actually used it before. Now, a lot of times they haven't, but they're upping their skills. Take a Coursera course. Take any courses online. And as a TAM, I love the GCP testimonials page. So just go to Google Cloud Testimonials, and you will never be able to get through all those testimonials. It's very client-facing, and that's really important and helpful as a TAM. So definitely spend some time on that Google Cloud Testimonials page. Lots of great testimonials that will give you a little bit more of a feel for the services, but up your knowledge. Nothing in particular. You've got to learn about storage and compute and data and networking and all those things that go into cloud services. Hi. 2 highs and hi. Okay. Any advice on the fair comp for customer engineer? Come back and tell us level, and then I can be more helpful. Any idea on when more TAM roles will open up? My TAM friends tell me there's always a perpetual need for TAMs. Well, I have heard, the data point that I have is that, it sounded weird. The data point I've heard is that there has been a greater need for TAMs than some of the other cloud roles, especially in Q3 and Q4, and that they have been hiring more TAMs than other cloud roles. I haven't had as much connectivity to that. I mean, I definitely coach TAMs. I haven't had any negotiation TAM clients very recently to say that they're going to the offer stage, but I have seen a higher need for TAMs than other roles in cloud. Yeah. Clarification on skills required. What kind of top skills are required to succeed? I don't think it's really different than any other client-facing role. You have to be great at questioning, great at listening, great at creating psychological safety, building trust, having empathy, rapport, leadership, good at action planning in general. But this all defaults back to collaboration. You have to be heavily collaborative. Just because it's a client-facing role doesn't mean you shouldn't be working with internal teams. Then there's the data side of things. You got to be really good with capturing data, looking at data, and finding opportunities with these big strategic clients to help them with their ads. I hope that helps. Google always gives you an answer, whether it's positive or negative. They still haven't told me about the process, if I've passed it or not. I'm sorry to hear that. If you haven't heard, follow up with your recruiter. If you haven't, just say, hey, I'm just checking in. Hope you're doing well. Like always, we default to graciousness and kindness. Really like to know where things stand, how things are progressing, etc. Just make sure you check in. If that didn't answer your question, come back and let me know if you have more. Do you think the hiring PSU? I am not sure what that means. If you can come back and re-ask the question, that would be great. Does Google's falling share have any impact on prospective hiring? What about GCP, who did pretty well? Yeah, I mean, I think falling share prices are definitely impacting these companies' ability to hire because it's a bottom line thing. I think GCP will pick up in Q1, but I'm guessing at best Q1 or Q2. GCP did do well, and I think that's good news for people who are interested in GCP roles. Thanks for the content. Even though I'm no longer going for Mang, I'm going for companies with Google leadership. Finish my loop and they're wrapping up interviews. Okay, this week. What are some tips and questions to prepare for negotiations and possibly title increase if you have more years of experience for the role and are the best candidate? So a lot of people don't like this feedback, right? But I just have to say it out loud. Title is ego, okay? So I know that in our careers, we work hard to get these titles, but title doesn't matter. You can call me whatever you want. I care about compensation. Compensation is all I care about. I run my own business. I'm not going to call myself a CEO or a president. I even remove founder. I'm an interview and negotiation coach. That's what I do. That's my job. So that's what I call myself, right? So I just get really hung up on title. This is a personal thing. It's no reflection on anybody else other than me. Now, for negotiations, obviously I have a lot of videos out there that I strongly encourage you to watch. The foundation is graciousness and kindness. If we start with a gracious and kind tone in life, we do more for those who are gracious and kind to us, just in general. So you have to have that as your foundation. If that's your foundation, you're going to get more money. Then you got to really go in high with an anchor, okay? If you're going into a company like Google, if you anchor high, it doesn't matter. They don't care, right? So, but when anchoring, just understand the company and if they would walk away if you would anchor high. And then secondary negotiations. I did a video on this. Just because they come back and say, look at this great new offer, you need to continue to push back, but push back in a reasonable way. Second, third, fourth negotiations need to be very reasonable, and I strongly recommend negotiating on one thing at a time, and slow and steady wins the race. It's a lot. That's why I offer services on that. I don't push anybody to take my coaching, but the negotiations are nuanced, and I think that oftentimes people just think they can do it on their own, but it's just oftentimes if you don't hire somebody to help you, it doesn't have to be me, but you'll leave a lot of money on the table. Do you think the hiring push will affect L3 SWE new grad roles? I've been put on hold since June after completing my on-site interviews. Yeah, I think that, well, the hiring push is about a push to hire. So it's not about a push out. And maybe that wasn't clear, and that's on me 100%. I do think that L3 SWE new grad hires, it's just going to be less. We're just going to see less of those. That's just going to be the world for a little bit. So I'm really hoping that you could get in before June of next year so that you could have that previous interview feedback count for you. That's kind of all the data I have, but let me know if you have any other questions. Can you talk more about ABP roles? I applied for one and haven't heard back, and it's been a month. Is that common? If you don't hear back in a month, they've moved on. Okay, so you can apply for up to 3 roles per month. So if you want to apply again, I'm not a fan of applying. I'm a strong fan of networking. If you aren't a part of our Slack group, I strongly recommend you join that. We've got a lot of ABPs in there, again, totally free. And you can network with them, talk with them about your skill sets. But if you've applied, you haven't heard back in a month, that just means they've moved on with others. Does the hiring freeze mean that there's a job post like an ABP, they will not hire anyone because of the freeze? If it's posted, it means they're hiring. ABPs are a slow roll to slow burn, okay? So even in good times, it can be very hard to land these ABP roles. Tina, our all-star ABP, she's in the Slack group. It took her 11 months in team match stage, and this was pre-hiring freeze. So the executives that hire ABPs are going to be very, very particular. So the ABP role, it's just a slow roll, and you have to be ready for that part of the process for these positions. Do I need to close a partner role interview with? Is there any reason you would not move forward or recommend me for the next step? Okay, this is a great question. I don't think you need to do it. Now, remember, some of these more salesy roles, you can go in for a close. I don't think that that's going to ultimately yield you not getting the job over somebody else. It just depends. It depends on who's interviewing you. Some people who are talking for roles that are more partner or sales driven like to hear that. It's how comfortable you feel asking that question. But for sales types of roles, it's a good closing question typically. My recruiter told me I did super well in the interviews, but other candidates were taken before me due to timings. They hired me. I set a cadence with an engaged recruiter. Any advice? My recruiter told me, yeah, that's it. So the goal here when we do check-ins with recruiters, we create that cadence, right? So then if we see roles online that we're a fit for, we do a less is more model. We highlight with this cadence, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it is, we share with them one role. You say, I found this one role online that I think is a really strong fit. You give them the link. You write down 3 to 5 bullets for why you're a fit for that role. You give them availability to chat about the role for the next 2 to 3 weeks. You send them maybe an updated resume that's more catered to that role. Got to make it as easy on them as possible. So these are just some opportunities, but building that cadence is the most important. I've done some interviews, DS role, I think that's data science, for a company and have not gotten an answer for 1 month. I sent a couple emails to the recruiter without a response. What can I do to get an answer? All right, Christian, now that it's been a month, I would go around them. Yeah, anybody who's, if you have sourcer's info, a coordinator's info, one of your interviewers' info, just reach out to them. We've got to make this recruiter look really, really bad. Recruiters need to feel the pain of their lack of organization. And if you've been on my lives, you know I am super tough on recruiters. I get to be. I've been a recruiter for 15 years, right? And so I feel like I can be tough on them. It's very easy to stay organized and follow up with people. It's not difficult. It's just because they don't have any systems and process in place. So try and go around them. Otherwise, if I were you, if you can't go around them, follow up with that recruiter every week and be gracious and kind. Hey, how are you? Just checking in again, hoping to hear about my status. I hope you had a great weekend, just checking in about my status. You will just poke and poke and poke and poke them to make them feel horrible about the fact that they didn't get back to you. We've got to make these recruiters feel the pain because their bad practices just, we got to get them to have more empathy and put themselves in our shoes. And the only way we do that is we just continue to get after them, okay? But we're gracious and kind throughout. Okay, so we answered that one. Hey, Thad. Wow, it's been a long time. Thanks for the great content. You mentioned if you had to guess hiring will be slow next year, do you think there's a higher likelihood to try and get hired before end of year? I just think if you can get in, you get in, right? Like I don't think anybody should be holding back. I think people should get after it. I think it's been a little scary with last in, first out, and I get that. And I've seen that, and I've seen that at the big companies from Meta to Snapchat and like Coinbase. We've seen all these kind of really bad stories, but I still think you should get after it. I don't think that it's going to be really benefit you to do it this year or next year. Just anything that comes your way, I recommend getting after. What is a senior manager analytics? What level is a senior manager analytics for Amazon? It probably varies a little bit. Senior manager is probably a 6 or a 7. What's your experience with candidates with a disability? Do these candidates get sent into a different pipeline and treated differently? How specifically do you deal with these candidates? Well, it depends on the disability, right? So some disabilities are physical disabilities, some are learning disabilities. So if it's a learning disability, then you might be given more time in an interview. If it's a physical disability, then maybe you have somebody who can come and collaborate with you during the interview. It it depends on the specific disability, and depends on how you communicate that with your recruiter or your point of contact. Just make sure if you have a special need that needs to help you throughout the interview process that you're highlighting that for them. I hope that helps. Hi, Jeff. How can I join Google off campus? When can I apply? I'm 22, out of bachelor student, now working as an SDET. Okay. Okay, and then like I got a Google apprenticeship if I need to give an exam, but I need a software engineer job in Google. Okay, so I'm not sure. You can apply directly online. There's not going to be a lot of these roles now. So I recommend getting referred in or networking in. But I don't think you need to give an exam for some. For some roles, they're going to have you do a test or do something up front. But yeah, you can just go ahead and straight apply. And some will require some sort of assessment. I hope that helps. I don't know if that answered your question. Okay, awesome. Well, referrals work. You have to know somebody. So I strongly encourage, people are always going out there and just generally asking for referrals. I think that's a really bad practice. You have to know somebody or potentially build a relationship with somebody through LinkedIn. But basically what happens with referrals is your candidacy gets escalated. That's a good thing. It means that you get eyes on your actual application and resume, whereas just generally applying, less of a likelihood of that. Turned down an Amazon SDE opportunity back in June. AWS recruiter reached out last week saying I don't need to re-interview as I got an offer within the last 6 months. How do you feel about AWS? So let's go to the second one. You got borderline L3, L4 feedback for a SWE at Google. Recruiter said, unless I re-interview next summer, I probably only get approved for L3. Google is annoying me, and I feel like I shouldn't wait for them. So, well, I totally agree that you shouldn't wait for them because that's outside of your control. Now, if we go back to AWS, that's within your control. I mean, I think it's pretty well known that AWS does not and is not known for having the best culture, okay? But that is on a case-by-case basis. You might end up with a fantastic manager at AWS, which is going to be way more important than this general knowledge of culture, right? So I strongly recommend you get into AWS too. It's a brand. If you don't have a big brand like that in your background, you should go join them. Just make sure you negotiate that offer. Amazon's been really tough. You can strongly negotiate the year 1 and year 2 sign-on bonuses, and you can do a little bit of negotiating on the equity as well. I definitely would want you to negotiate on the base as well. But the year 1 and year 2 sign-ons are usually the ones I get to move the most. I hope that helps. Hey Jeff, I have my GCA round for an AM YouTube tomorrow. Any last minute tips? Been binge watching your videos and you're a star. Thanks so much for that. For the account manager role, it's just really, really important to be collaborative driven. I just think that that's a missing data point. How do you work with critical stakeholders to in turn make sure that you're getting good results for clients? So I would really drive towards that. Continue to really, really work that cheat sheet today. Make sure your cheat sheet is super clean. If you haven't seen that video, watch that. And then just be fine tuning your behavioral answers as much as you can today. And then the last tip, 30 minutes minimum before the interview. Shut down, meditate, just chill out, because we try and overwork our brains before we get into these interviews, and we have limited brain capacity. All the data and science shows that. So chill out before the interview and then come back and let us know how it goes. Can I postpone my interview with Google, or is this a red flag? I don't feel fully prepared. Arthur, this is a fantastic question. 100% absolutely, but check with your recruiter first. And the specific message is, say your recruiter is Jane. You say, Jane, I feel like getting another week or two, whatever you think the timeline is, to prepare would really benefit me in the interview process. I'm hoping to postpone the interviews, but I want to make sure I'm not putting anything at risk by doing that. Can you please let me know if we can push the interviews? Thank you so much. Because as a recruiter, I would just simply tell you, hey, look, Arthur, you can't push. There's too many candidates in the pipeline. We have too many good people. Like, we're looking to make a quick decision. Or I might say to you, Arthur, we got nobody else. Or like, the pipeline's slow. Like, absolutely, let's push to the end of next week, or let's push to the beginning of the week of the 14th so you can get a couple weekends to prep. So send that note now. And I think there's also I went through this with a client last week, and they told me it was too late to push. And I think it was only one interview, and they said it's too late to push. It's never too late to push. I'm Jeff, your interviewer, and all of a sudden an interview drops off my calendar. You think I'm upset? I'm excited. I just got that time back. I might not actually have to conduct that interview. It's fine to push. We can push up to the day before, sometimes the day of. It's not a flag as long as you're not putting anything at risk. So we just want to find that out with our recruiter. Great question. What would be a fair comp for the customer engineer, Chronicle, Google, Cloud, Security, L6, Chicago, 10 to 15 years of experience? I'd be anchoring into the fives, mid fives, and I'd want to see you land that job year one, high fours. Okay, it's going to pay. It's going to pay really well. You should be getting into the high fours in year one. I am considering applying to a senior director role at Disney Gaming. From my experience as a program manager in tech at Verizon, what are the chances at applying outside of my industry in a higher role? Not very good. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you make the leap from program manager at Verizon to senior director role at Disney Gaming. I just don't. It's too big of a leap. So I'm trying to think of the movie. I can't think of it. I'm having a moment. But baby steps. So what I want you to do is think about this from a baby steps perspective. Like, we can't jump from program manager tech to senior director gaming. You might be able to go from program manager tech at Verizon to program manager or senior program manager at Disney, but trying to make multiple level jumps into a completely different role. I don't know, maybe you're a program manager gaming and it's not completely different, but it's just very, very unlikely. Even if you had referrals, it sounds like a big leap. I don't know your background enough to say 100%, but smaller steps, baby steps is what I recommend. Hey, Jeff, I have a GCA round for an account manager, YouTube, tomorrow. Any last minute steps? Okay, yeah, we got that one. Just answered that one. I think it came through on LinkedIn and YouTube. Hey, Jeff, just wanted to update that I signed a full-time DV offer for a new college grad. Awesome, Jen. Thank you so much for letting us know. So nice to see that people actually are getting offers and moving forward. I know it's super, super slow, and trust me, everything. If anybody could look at what my business looked like earlier this year to what it looks like now, I feel everybody's pain from a different perspective. Less clients, YouTube views, everything is just way, way down. The economy's down, less hiring. Like, we all see it, we all feel it. So when I see these items come through, it's just awesome. Congrats. Any idea when SDE roles in cloud will open up? Nope, I don't, but I would hope that Q1 or Q2 of next year is what I would anticipate, but I can't say for sure. I'd like to get a software engineer at Google. Sorry. I'd like to get a software engineer job at Google. What kind of experience I need to make or work so that I can put my resume so it can stand out? I mean, to get a software engineer job, a background in software engineering is really helpful. If that's your education, I think you were doing more on the maybe testing side of things, but just a strong foundation in engineering. That doesn't have to be a formal education. That can be boot camps, that can be self-taught. You can have some content, open source content. Just up that skill set as much as you can. Continue to up it, and that's what's going to be success. Should I not provide any salary expectations and see what I get? it will be better than what I have anyways. So you can anchor first. You can come in with a heavy anchor. You can let them go first. I don't really see a difference. If they go first versus us going first, I'm still able to get my clients the same comp. So if they go first, you'll just come back with a very high anchor, or you can lead. Just make sure that you absolutely have level, location, all those things confirmed before you negotiate. And beforehand, no numbers. Thanks for all the content. You got into GCP recently, and your tips for being gracious and kind helped me negotiate total comp without a competing offer, 216 to 299. This idea, and thank you so much for sharing, and congrats. I love that jump. We do not need competing offers. They don't help us as much as we think, and all this terrible data online says competing offer, don't negotiate. No, you can get after it without a competing offer. But if you work with the foundation of graciousness and kindness, if you just push and you're aggressive, it's not going to work. Thank you so much for sharing it. Congrats. That's awesome. Okay, we hit the 1 hour mark. Quick prompt hit on the services. $100 off interview mastery course. It's a great offer. Use the coupon code MOON, MOON. It's only good through today, 11:59 Pacific time in the US. I do practice interviews. I do negotiation coaching. Trust me, that negotiation coaching is killer. Slack group on practiceinterviews.com, free. 9 killer free resources on practice interviews. I'm going to switch next week, going live Tuesdays, and original content every other week on Mondays. I need to make a shift in my calendar. Google is hiring TSEs, but remember, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. All hires are case-by-case basis now. So are they hiring TSE L3s? Probably, but it's a limited number. Also, what is the Slack role called? I'm not sure. If we're just talking about the Slack group, it's just practiceinterviews.com. There's a link to the Slack group. And you can join for free. And just a note to the community, you're going to see a completely different website in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to revamp everything, so things are going to move around a little bit. So I'll prompt to that and kind of share where things have moved on the website, but the website's getting a much needed facelift. Can I post? Did we answer this one? Was this the same person, or is this a different person? I don't know if this is a different person. I just answered this question. Email your recruiter, ask them if you're putting anything at risk by postponing, and then just see. But postponing is not a big deal at all. Jeff, when is it going to stop? Or when will they start hiring fresher SWE roles? Don't know. Probably maybe next summer, but I can't say for sure. Has things moved for your CE negotiation client? If yes, how close did the compensation reach that of a SWE? Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. I had one recently that was very close to what a SWE would earn at that level, kind of that 90 to 95% range. Yeah, so seen a couple of really crazy SWE offers lately, though, like really crazy. Remember, the roles are prioritized. They're critical hires. The bands are crazy numbers. Okay, so yeah, my most recent CE hire got one of the best CE offers I've seen. Part 1, Jeff. Great information. Google recently stood up a new subsidiary, Google Public Sector. What are your thoughts on the number of new openings in this division? What are your thoughts for the demand need with positions requiring security clearance? I'm a military veteran, and I'm excited about potentially working with Google Public Sector. Okay, so Google Public Sector. I have no idea the number of openings in this division. I would imagine security clearance could come up. Obviously, any public sector that involves the government, you're going to need some security clearance, so that's great. Obviously, thank you for your service. Really appreciate it. But I don't have all the details, but I do think security clearance can be really beneficial. It's kind of all the data I have. I'm not going to be super helpful on this one, Milton. Let me know if you have any other questions. Hi, Jeff. My 2 rounds of GCP PM roles are done. My team matching round was about to happen and hiring freeze. Are you aware when hiring will start again? I think everything's queuing towards a Q1, Q2 push for GCP. So we'll just have to wait. Probably not. AVP roles remote, I would imagine. I would probably say no on that. They're probably going to want you to be physically present. Again, remember, it's a hybrid environment, so maybe 3 days in the office, 2 remote. Hi, Jeff. Passed on site for product strategy ops role, but didn't get selected. Now you're in a team match situation, I think, where the recruiters are connecting me with hiring managers, have 2 chats in the past 3 months, and want to proactively find roles I'm a good fit for on the site. You recommended I reach out to the recruiter with a few roles for why I'm a fit during this team match. I've been in contact with the original recruiter and a new one. Should I ask for updates, send them the same roles? Should I loop both of them into one email chain? Okay. Well, so, okay. So I would go back and make sure that all those positions are still available, right? So that's one. I don't think you need to loop in the old person. You can just loop in the new person and say, I shared a few of these roles with the previous recruiter. You may want to touch base with them to see if they push those forward. Obviously, if you want to CC them, you can. Best day of the week and month to check in with the recruiters. Talk to them about that. What day do you prefer I check in with you? How often? Once a week? Bi-weekly? Monthly? Ask them, because it's going to be different for every single recruiter, okay? What jobs fall under product ops job family? Seems like product strategy and product planning's roles, but I'm curious as others as well. Well, product ops can fall under a lot of different departments. I don't know all the departments for sure. I don't think they went badly, but the fact that those teams didn't want me, will it impact how other HMs view you as a candidate? No, it will not. All they can see is your packet. They can't see what happened in those team match calls. I hope I answered all your questions. Clarification on compensation question. Google AE, location India, 10 years, work experience level not mentioned. Yeah, so an AE in India, like AE should get to 85% of what software engineers are getting paid. So again, do the levels.fyi formula. Look at what software engineers are making at your proposed level. Probably an L6. AE is probably going to start an L6 at least. So what are the last 10 software engineers at an L6 made? Times that times 0.85. So take those 10, get the average, times it times 0.85. That's what you should make. Okay, but that means you got to anchor at 1.15 times what those software engineers are making. Something like that, about 30% above. I hope that helps. Let me know. I still think that, again, I don't want to prompt on my videos too much, but that's maybe the best negotiation video I've done. There's a simple formula. You know, we can find out how much comp we want to make in any market. If we just look at the software engineers that have been hired, that's our most consistent and the one data point where we have the most information. Let's utilize that to our benefit. I was told by the recruiter that they were done reprioritized and I should reach out next year. Any way I can contact you directly to network with you? Well, I mean, anybody can connect with me on LinkedIn, but I had to draw a hard line in the sand years ago. I don't network anybody into any company. It's just the amount of requests I get to do that daily is a much bigger number than I think anybody would really believe. So you can network with me directly, but I always default and strongly recommend show up on these lives, ask questions here, and ask questions in the Slack group. It's the 2 best forums to get my attention. Made it to the final round for an AWS role where I didn't receive an offer. Recruiter mentioned there's a 6-month to 12-month cooldown period, but it doesn't apply to all roles. Is there a way to verify which roles this cooldown period? I'm unsure if it's for the particular role or the entire org that the role belongs to. Lastly, how do I determine if I can apply in 6 months versus 12 months? They can't tell you. when you can reapply. So I would say reapply in 6 months. There's no hard, fast rules with these organizations. They just want you to increase your interview skill set and increase your overall just skills in general. Okay. I hope that helps, Dad. Let me know if you have any other questions. What is the lowest years of experience a candidate has been seen for L5 SWE? I have 4 years of experience. You're being down level from L5 to L4. Should I try again with 1 year or 5 years experience? I heard internal promotion to L5 is tough. Internal promotions are based on performance. If you crush it, you will get promoted. The years of experience isn't going to matter. If they were already looking at you for a 5, that's pretty good after 4 years of experience. I can't tell you whether another year is going to help. I would also sometimes recommend to just go in the organization. If you feel like you can get to that next level in a year, why not join now and go ahead and just get in there and crush it? Let me know if you have other questions. For AVP roles, I'm confused. Does Google not look at all resumes? No, they don't. They might tell you that they do, but no, they don't look at all resumes. You should see, I mean, they get 3, 4, 5 million resumes a year. So no, they definitely don't look at all of them. Yeah, the system should be filtering out some, identifying through AI and ML what are some of the keywords that are matching, and then, you know, really it's up to the sourcers mostly, and sometimes recruiters to find those good resumes. I hope that helps. How a source reference sourcers is different from a hiring manager. Well, a sourcer is the front end of the recruiting process who finds the potential candidates for the hiring manager who's hiring for a specific need on their team. I hope that helps. How slow is the hiring process now? Will be quick as before the slowdown for the end of the year hires? Yeah, Victor, I think you'll see some increased speed for the critical hires to get them hired before the end of the calendar year. You usually see an uptick in speed in November and early December, typically. Thanks a lot for your efforts and your help. I'm wondering if it's best to start an IC L5 and transition to an EM role, or come in as an EM directly. I'm an MLE with a PhD, 6 years of experience as an IC and a tech lead. Well, I'm a little confused by this because, yeah, I mean, I just think so much of this, like when we talk about roles and levels and manager versus IC, I'm just a big fan of, can you get in the door? If you can get in the door, then you show off your true skill set, and you show it off not just in the job, but through strong collaboration, strong networking. I think it's much easier to just try and get in the door and then show off your skill set. That's going to be the best way to move up. I don't know what the other role that you're looking at besides EM, but most engagement managers are ICs. Had a technical interview last week with a PgM. Subsequently, the recruiter reached out for me to schedule a call to connect for later this week. Tips for how to prepare. Might it be good or bad news? Can't tell you if it's good or bad news. Recruiters, this is a poor communication skill. If it was good news, they should preemptively say, hey, I have good news. I want to hop on a call with you later this week. That would be an empathetic approach. It's not an approach they take that often. Now, they might be calling you later this week to come up with a strategy for your next interviews. We don't know, but I just wish that they would preemptively give you positive news if it was positive. But I've just seen both cases so many times. Nothing to prepare. You literally don't need to prepare anything. Okay. And good luck. It's awesome. Thanks for your videos. Thanks for being here. Is Google hiring H1B in Europe? I believe that there are still, everything I've seen, there are still hires requiring, they're still hiring, they're still making hires that require sponsorship throughout Europe. I'm still seeing that consistently, yes. Hi, Jeff, still on the freeze after a verbal offer. Are PR roles low in priority in general for tech companies? Should I think I'm last on the list? It's really about role prioritization. Now, tech is always going to have a little bit of that uptick, but it's always dependent on the specific need within that group within the organization. Hi, Jeff. I'm currently working at Google as a temp employee. I'd love to apply for a full-time position, but I don't see any position that matches my experience. Should I wait until there's one? No, but don't apply. Start networking. You're already internal to the organization. How can you stretch your skill set to start supporting collaborative teams on initiatives or other items that you might be able to help with? You've got to really network internally. You have a huge advantage over external people. So don't apply, build the relationships internally. I wish that CE roles would get back in motion soon. Yeah, I know it's been a long time, and you know, I think it's been pretty candid. I have a few CE negotiation clients who are just hanging out, just waiting until next year, basically, and just taking any team match they can get. Any thoughts on Bloomberg and Roblox for SWEs? I think that both of those are good organizations for SWEs. I've worked with one somewhat recently who took a job at Bloomberg as a SWE. They were pretty happy with their offer and everything. It was really good. Roblox, I think, is a good up and coming organization. So I have limited data. Teamblind.com. Go do your online research. But that's what I know. My recruiter called me 3 weeks after virtual on-site interview for the data center tech. He told me there's no headcount right now. You still think I have a chance to get an offer? And do I have to follow up with him every month or weeks? Well, you should definitely ask. Recruiters like if you ask. Just simply say, hey, I'm still interested in the role. How often should I follow up with you? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? Build that cadence, build that relationship with them. But should you be following up? Absolutely. It's very easy. It will be a 1-minute email every week or so. If you keep getting looked at by Google on LinkedIn, they do not send a message, does that mean I need to fix my LinkedIn page? Maybe. But if they're looking at your LinkedIn, that's a good sign. It means you're getting some interest. LinkedIn profiles. I actually put a post on LinkedIn this morning. Nobody wants to hear it. It is the easiest thing in the world. You simply need to take your resume bullets and copy and paste them into your experience. You're going to get a lot of feedback that you shouldn't do that. Why? LinkedIn is a search tool. It's no different than Google or YouTube or any of these other places that we go and we use search tools. They're going to search for those. Recruiters are going to search for those keywords. When I added that I recruited software engineers to my LinkedIn profile, it wasn't long after that I got contacted by Google. So your LinkedIn page should be amazing. Smiling picture, shoulders and above only, nothing in the background. Clean background, great headline, great background image. All your experience data should be in there. All your education data, it should be clean. You should review it time and time again. You should get some activity going. You should comment on good, positive things that other people are doing. We gotta focus more on LinkedIn. Do you love LinkedIn? Probably not. Do I love LinkedIn? No, I don't love it as a tool. I wish there was a better tool out there, but it is the tool. And we need to make sure that we're not missing out on this very, very easy data point to get reached out to by these elite companies. So review it, take a look, and maybe there's some room for improvement. I looked online and saw that Googlers can send a personalized referral link to candidates. I asked to Google for a referral and they said it was done, but I had no link. They said the referral would be added when I applied. Is there a new way that referrals are being done? No, that's kind of the process. You're applying and then your referrer should be able to help you. That sounds right. Hey, Jeff, I recently interviewed at Google for a SWE, got early feedback from the recruiter, and they mentioned one of the rounds has negative feedback. Partially, I blame the interviewer in that round as they gave me a problem and were reluctant to engage in the conversation. How do I communicate to the recruiter for additional interview rounds or convey this feedback of a poorly conducted interview? Share that with your recruiter. Just say, this interviewer was not very engaged with me, and I just wanted to provide that feedback, because if you don't provide that feedback, that interviewer is going to do it to other people. Will it help you? Maybe, maybe not. But I always am a big fan of providing feedback when the interviewer is not good. There's no interviewer accountability, none. Google has no interviewer accountability whatsoever. They've never built that into their systems. So what happens? Googlers sometimes have big egos. Look, it is what it is. And a third of them really don't show up for the interviews. They don't show on their turn on their cameras. They're bad interviews. They're poorly trained. They don't care. So you got to give that feedback, please. I'm sorry to hear that happened. When Google positions are listed in multiple locations and remotes, what is the reference location we should use? Well, it's up to you. If you're thinking about remote and you're trying to maybe figure out comp, right? You would look at like or similar roles in your specific location. But you don't have to reference a specific location unless there's one that you really are excited about. If I have my current job on LinkedIn as a freelancer, is that bad? And the reason I don't get messages from top companies? Thanks for all the help. No, freelancer isn't necessarily a negative. It's all in the eyes of the beholder. And I don't think freelancer is bad, especially if it's relevant. You're like a freelancer that's really focused in on executive support. That's fine. Okay. We're at the end of questions. I am going to go into my wrap up. If any additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. $100 off our interview mastery course. People are getting so much value out of that. There's 50 templates that are going to help you organize all the data and information to have success in the interviews. If you use the coupon code MOON, MOON, $100 off the course until 11:59 Pacific time today. I do interview coaching. That helps you get the offer. Then I do negotiation coaching. We crush these offers, especially lately. The offers have been insane. Free resources. Join our Slack group. There's 3,600 people in the Ask Me Anything bucket. They're answering each other's questions. There's data, there's information. It's great. 9 free resources on the website. And starting next week, I'm going to lives on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I might actually have to go an even earlier time than it's going to be the normal schedule. I'm going to put it out there and see if people prefer 9, 8, 9, 10, what people prefer. And then new original content will come out every Monday. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I know things are moving super slow. The lives are slower. The watch time's slower. I have less clients. We're seeing less people come in and say they got the jobs, but we'll get through it together. So thanks for being here. I'm going to answer these last questions and bounce off. Question regarding locations and compensation at G. Mountain View pays more than San Diego. So if the office locations is multiple, which one should I reference for salary? Where you're going to work from. So if you're going to work remote from San Diego, which, by the way, I recommend. I'm looking out the door. I live in San Diego. I mean, it's great, but you have to reference the location that you're actually going to be working from. That's going to be the most helpful. I hope that helps. You're welcome. Yes, join the Slack group. I mean, Raul crushes it there. Just absolutely crushes it. Gives so many great data points. Comes up with graphs and analytics. There's tons of data on there. It's free. You're welcome. Thanks for being here, John. Hi, Jeff. You have a call scheduled to Sourcer from Google next week. She hasn't told me about the role yet. Keep you posted. Awesome. Yeah, Sourcer call is going to be super, super chill. Be on time. Great communication skills. Sit and listen. It'll be great. If a job is taken down that you applied for Google, does that mean they found somebody? They either found somebody or the pipeline is active enough that they pulled the job down. Thank you, everybody, again, for being here. I will be back next Tuesday, and I'm going to poke the community and just kind of find out what the best start time will be for those new live sessions.